Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Larkspur Parks and Recreation Commission. It's Thursday, March 19th. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Harrison.
Here.
Commissioner Sunshine.
Here.
Commissioner Friedel.
Here.
And Chair Baxter.
Here.
The record show that Commissioner Capel is absent tonight.
Commissioner Capel. Item number 2, public comment. The Parks and Recreation Commission will hear public comments only on matters over which they have jurisdiction. There will be no commission discussion. The chair will allot no more than 5 minutes to any individual. Unless the chair determines otherwise, the total amount of time allocated to this agenda item will be 15 minutes. Is there any public comment? Moving right along to agenda item number 3, approval of the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar for December 18th and January 15th?
So we cannot,
Do the 18th, right? 'Cause I
cannot
wasn't here.
approve December 18th.
Okay,
And then 15th would be fair game.
great. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from January 15th?
I'll make a motion.
And
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have to bring in, there was a late edition public comment online, did I got that in?
I printed out copy.
There was one about the park.
Say it again.
There was one about the park that was online for general public comment.
Yeah, so in the public comment, so that's on the agenda.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
we'll hit that when we get to that. Moving right along to agenda item number 4, business items. I think we're going to skip over item 4.1 if I'm not mistaken, with an absence.
Yep.
Which takes us to item 4.2, Parks Capital Improvement Projects for fiscal year 2026 and 2027 with Mr. Julian Skinner, Department of Public Works Director. Really excited to hear this.
Good evening. So as you know, every year we present to the City Council a proposed capital improvement program budget. It's a 5-year planning document that looks out over the next 5 fiscal years for all of our capital improvement projects. One category within the projects we look at is parks projects. And so each year we bring our parks projects that are in the proposed capital program to the Parks and Recreation Commission for your comments and for you to pass along those comments, recommendations to the City Council for their consideration when they consider the capital improvement program as a whole. Typically, we have 2 sessions with the council. We have a workshop where we present the CIP and we discuss all the projects and the funding. And then typically the first meeting in June, the council receives additional public comment and adopts the program. So as a reminder, even though we do a 5-year CIP for planning purposes, we only ever program the immediate next year's fiscal allocations. So what I'm going to highlight in the presentation tonight is 3 projects that we're proposing receive capital funds in fiscal year 26-27 for parks projects. The first of those projects is what we call a carryover project, meaning that it's been in the capital improvement program before. And that's the Greenbrae School Park improvements. This project's been on the books for a couple of years. It started when Rita Schock was still here and she did some public outreach, gathered some community feedback on improvements that the neighborhood and park goers would like to see in the park. We also, whenever we do projects in the parks, we look at our mini parks action plan to see what items were identified in that document for whenever this park came up in the program. So we've done some minor work there with some money that was already allocated. We did a improvement project for some of the playground equipment over at Dolliver, and that displays some of the equipment there. So that got moved over to Greenbrae School Park. And then from time to time, we've done a little bit of maintenance and things over there, but we didn't really launch into the bigger project. And so following Rita's outreach, she did some Survey Monkey and she put some signs up, and we received emails on what people's thoughts were for the park. Following that, we held a workshop last fall, and we invited anybody who had signed up during the Survey Monkey. We sent out mailers for people in the vicinity of the park, and we posted notices at the park. And we put some boards up around the room, and we highlighted some of the things at the park that have come up as this should be improved or this could be done better, as well as some other thoughts that had come about from the survey, such as things that new additions that people wanted. Overall, the general consensus from the outreach that we've done is that folks that use the park aren't really looking for any new big look at me features in the park. Folks are pretty content overall with the makeup of the park and what's there as far as amenities. But there was a strong desire to improve the existing basketball court that's there. It's in a slight state of disrepair, and we do some maintenance on it from time to time, but it really needs a bit of an overhaul. The court needs to be redone, and it needs new hoops. And then the second highest comment was the paths. People enjoy walking around there, and the paths are in various states of disrepair from either tree roots or just general asphalt's broken up over time. And then the other comment was the pathway lighting. There's bollard lighting over there, and they break from time to time. And so through a series of replacements, there's about 4 different bollard types out there, depending on what got replaced at a certain time. So we're looking at improving those and putting some higher efficiency bollards in there that will all match and be the same. In addition to that, we've also been looking at all of our parks in general. As you know, water rates keep going up, and there's also, for sustainability reasons, we're always looking at ways to improve our landscaping to make us less reliant on irrigation and water, and also to reduce maintenance hours to the extent we can. There was a little bit of pushback at the public meetings when we talked about removing turf. Folks really like the what's it called? Kind of the random kind of informal like turf area where it's not delineated. It's not a field or anything like that. It's just kind of, masses of grass where people either run or walk their dog or have their kids run or whatever. And people really wanted to keep that. They didn't want to really see anything formalized into like a field type thing. And they also weren't super crazy about removing any of the turf areas and putting more water tolerant plants in. So we've been chatting with some landscape architects we've been using on other projects, and there are alternatives to turf that kind of are similar to turf, but they're more natural grasses. They require less water, and in an extreme drought, they don't die off as quickly with less watering. And also, if we have maintenance hours issues and we can't get to everything, this type of grass doesn't overgrow and get super crazy. It's designed to grow out a little bit and still look like it's maintained. So we're going to evaluate areas that maybe are closer to the streets where people aren't running and using the grass as people normally use grass, and try and do some kind of programmed or systematic replacement of some of the turf in some of those areas to try and reduce that requirement for mowing as frequently, and also for water. So that's kind of the overall view of what we're looking at for that project. So the next steps, assuming the project gets funded, is we'll work with a landscape architect to kind of put these ideas on paper, and then we'll go out to the community again with, we heard your feedback. We've got funding allocated, and this is what our vision is for the park, and then get a little bit more feedback, and then turn that into construction documents and go out and get it built. So what we're looking for to complete that work is about $120,000. And as you know, really the only funding source we have for parks these days is the County Parks Measure A. It's a sales tax countywide, so it varies every year. It depends on what the sales tax income is. Our share comes to us by a formula that the county uses for all cities and towns in Marin, and we get roughly about 100,000 a year, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. But we've actually worked up a little bit of a balance in our Measure A County Parks account, mostly because when we did Niven, we had a substantial, as you know, private donation for that, so we didn't have to use as much Measure A. And also that project took a couple of years, so we were rolling our Measure A money over while we were doing Niven. And then also with the delays we've had in launching the Greenbury School Park project, it's also allowed us to bank up another year of Measure A funding. So I think right now we have about 450,000 roughly available. That doesn't include another 100,000 that will be coming in this fiscal year, and then another 100,000 or so next fiscal year. So we've got about $650,000 in the county parks account at the moment. And so the request for this project is about 120, which is what we think it will take to redo the basketball court, the paths, and then the bollard lighting and some of the turf turnover to the natural grass. So I can go through the other projects, or we can stop and chat about the projects one by one, whatever your preference is, if you have any questions about Greenbury School Park.
Why don't we proceed to the
Okay.
next project?
All right. The next two projects are a little smaller, but they're part of a much bigger park. So Piper Park, as you know, from time to time, we have individual items in Piper Park that we target with our CIP. We've done volleyball courts before. And so we're looking at a couple of needs that have come up, and this is in consultation with Director Stone and what he's hearing feedback from users and what the needs are in Piper Park. The first one that we're proposing is to improve the dugouts at the softball field. So right now there's fencing around the dugouts, but there's no overhead. So this is not necessarily for rain. This is more for sun on those hot days. I mean, I think it was 90 today, right? So there's no shade protection in those dugouts. And so what we'd be looking at doing is for each of the dugouts on the two fields, we'll be doing some sort of shade over the dugouts. We've estimated this at about 50,000. We haven't done the engineering on it to figure out if we need more substantial fence posts, because the fence is probably going to have to be a little bit higher to support the shade. So that's why 50,000 sounds a little high for putting shade on, but this is because we think we may have to redo some of the posts out there for the fence. And so that's the second project that we're proposing. So that would be the 4 dugouts, 2 at each field, shade structures. And what we're looking at is basically it would be similar fencing to what we have, but it would have the slats in it, so it would provide shade. We'll also work with our vendors to see if there's other cost-effective and somewhat aesthetic options. We want to do something a little bit more than like a shade sail. We do have shade sails up in some locations, but they've proven to be a little bit of a maintenance headache. So we're looking at something a little bit more substantial than that. So that's the second. And again, for all of these, the funding source proposed is County Parks Measure A. It's about 50,000. The third project also at Piper Park is the tennis courts. The nature of tennis courts is they're asphalt courts, and they have surfacing on them that needs to be resurfaced every 5 to 7 years or so. And then also typically when we do that, we evaluate the court for any cracking or puddling or settling. And to the extent we can fix that, we would do that with a resurfacing. There are some issues at the tennis courts that we can't fix with a simple project like this. But what we would do is most of the crack sealing, we do a little bit of leveling. So it's a really fine graded asphalt to take up some of the areas where the court settled. Over time, as you know, most of Piper Park is on top of an old landfill, and it's still settling here and there, different places. Settles in different amounts depending on what was buried underneath. So it's going to be an ongoing issue. But we think it's cost effective to do a little bit of leveling and a little bit of crack sealing when we resurface the courts out there. The other thing that's come up in looking at the condition of the courts is a lot of the damage from the courts is caused by the oleander bushes that have very invasive roots that are kind of lining kind of form a screen between the tennis court and the parking lot. But they're really not the greatest plant to have there as far as what they're doing to the courts. So the proposal would be to take those out and put something back in that doesn't have the invasive roots. We put a root barrier in and evaluate some deep root irrigation options so the roots don't come up and lift the pavement again. And then also we would, because we're doing the tennis courts at Piper, we would do the tennis courts at Centennial at the same time. These are, for the most part, these are specialty contractors that come in and do this work. And so there's an economy of scale in getting them done at the same time. Be very cost effective to, even though it's not the same location when they're mobilized to town, it's cost effective to have them come in and do Centennial at the same time. So that's the third project. It's about $160,000. We're thinking it's about probably 120 of that is for Piper and about 40 for Centennial. But we'll go out there and do the evaluation and see how much crack sealing and leveling is required to see what that split ends up being. But that's our estimate as of the moment. And also, again, Parks Measure A. So as I mentioned, there's about 450,000 in there, another 200,000 coming in. So we'll still have a pretty hefty balance of Parks Measure A for discussing next projects down the line. As you know, Rita's position wasn't backfilled, so we're trying not to be super adventurous with our parks projects. It's taken us a little bit of time to get Greenbrae School Park going, so we think our plate for parks projects will be pretty full with these three projects. I think as we look out over the next 5 years, when you see the document, the next kind of projects that were in line is Hillview Greenway hasn't really been touched. It's more of a passive park, but I think the concept for that was improving some of the landscaping and repaving the pathway. And then Heatherwood Phase 2 has always been on the list. We don't get a whole lot of public requests for that, but we did, in partnership with some of the residents out there, we did do a playground replacement probably about 10 years ago. But the other playground didn't get touched. And so there was always a plan to come back and do that. So that's on the books within the 5-year program. But again, we don't really get a lot of requests for that. We know we get a lot of use at Piper, and we've already started the Greenbrae, so that's why we're prioritizing those projects at this time. Any questions? Yes.
So on the softball field, I know, Nick, was it the women's, girls softball, they wanted a scoreboard? So when we get that project, would it be worth going to them and seeing if they want to be partners in that? And so scoreboards would obviously be something much more expensive because it's an electrical situation, possibly, whatever, but they wanted a scoreboard put in. I can't remember who that was at the time. It was a while back, but is it worth having that discussion if we're going to be building out dugouts? Yeah, open that discussion with them if they want to help fund it in a partnership. I think it was on.
Yeah, it was
A.
It was girls softball and really wanted a scoreboard. And in the last 5-6 years, the technology has accelerated so much that they were just able to buy some Bluetooth scoreboards that they can actually just roll out there. And use
so I don't know if it's worth it or not. Other people may not have it, so I don't know if we want to have that conversation. It might be nice if we're going to do it to have scoreboards out. And then on the tennis courts, we had talked about, and I think you said it didn't get done for a specific reason, a waiting area. If we're gonna redo the surfacing for the pickleball, the lineup that happens, is there a way to do that with this project? If we're gonna be ripping up the oleander, it was like a waiting area because there's a queue that starts for the pickleball chaos.
Yeah, there's other minor things that are included in the Piper tennis, and that's one of them is, and once we rip the oleanders out that have kind of pushed up on the court, they've also pushed up on the path. So we're going to redo some of the path. Okay. And Nick's already chatted with me about maybe expanding some of the hardscape in that area for, yeah.
Okay, and then you're clearly still under your allotment that you banked, which is great.
Yep.
And so does any of that get banked and saved because, you know, there's a new building going in at Piper eventually? there might be some use for, we want to do something there.
It hasn't when
I know the timeline is for that, I know it's.
yeah, we did not put any Parks Measure A money into the new rec building. The priority and the practice has been in the past to try and take that Parks Measure A money and actually put it into active, parks within the parks as opposed to a building or programming or maintenance. There are some cities and towns in Marin that took that money and just said, we're using that to mow the lawns and stuff. And we've, because there's such limited funding for parks, we've kind of always wanted to be able to build things and show that we, have improved the park and paid for this in Measure A. So, the city council did have a long funding discussion about the rec building, and the Measure A county parks money didn't come into that conversation at that time. So
I'll keep it up.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that there's a beautiful park and rec building next to that crown jewel on Rose Lane.
that is the plan.
And I know you'll build something beautiful. Thank you. These are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions from the other commissioners?
Sounds good.
I have a question, not so much on the prioritization of these three projects, but kind of moving forward, and I appreciate you kind of teeing up the next ones. I'm just curious on how those projects, are those projects tied to the mini parks master plan? Or when does that conversation start to happen if there is something we hear, or, there's a desire from the community to do something, like whatever it is?
Yeah, so we've made our way through most of what was in the mini parks action plan, either with small maintenance improvements from time to time, or we've kind of gone through park to park. We did, with the help of Serenity, we did neighborhood park one year. Like I mentioned, we did Heatherwood, and we've gone through a lot of them. There are some other kind of not as glamorous things, but still needed, like ADA improvements. Like a lot of the paths don't meet ADA for slope reasons and things like that. We've done a lot of water fountain replacement here and there at multiple parks. So yeah, I mean, every year when we, when our staff puts together the CIP, that's one of the documents we look at is the Piper Park Master Plan. We look at the mini parks action plan and see what's next in line, what's been touched and what hasn't been touched. And from the master plan, that's where the leftover Heatherwood improvements and Hillview Greenway were both kind of the last time we went through this exercise, the next identified from the mini parks action plan that would get improved. But certainly if we wanted to have a conversation and pull the document out and give you kind of an update on what we've done and what's left to be done in that mini parks action plan, that's something we could come back with at another meeting. So you had a little bit, more context for when we come back with the next year's. Yeah.
I love that. I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
And just curious, like in terms of timing, do you start working that in the fall and the late fall? I assume the CIP.
Yeah, so
programs are-
the budget timeline is published by finance every year in about January. And it kind of starts the clock rolling on when we've got to start putting documents together, and then they go through a process with staff and then administration. And then once we have formulated it, then it comes here and then it goes to the city council. So I think if you wanted to start looking at the mini parks action plan and what's been done and looking at projects over the next 5 years, probably that kind of, a month or two before this meeting. So at this meeting I'm coming, and we've already kind of looked on the information we have before. But if you want to kind of take a step back and look a little bit more at what we're doing over the next 5 years, we can come to you kind of a step earlier when we're reviewing those documents and just kind of share that thought process with you. Kind of almost do a workshop like we do with the city council, where we kind of look at a little bit more. Because what I'm doing now is I'm bringing you the recommendations based on my review, but Yeah, it might be good for us all to kind of look at that document and just a refresher, and especially if you get questions from the community, like how come you haven't touched my park in 10 years, and then, you know,
Right.
you'll.
Or why, yeah, why this park? Not it?
Yep.
I think that would be.
Yeah.
kind
So
of
I think we
helpful,
could
yeah.
look at next year, we'll come and do a step earlier than this and do a little bit more deeper dive and look at the mini parks action plan.
That sounds fantastic. I think the other commissioners would welcome that opportunity. Thank you very much for offering that, Mr. Skinner. Are there any other questions from Mr. Skinner? And two questions I have. So I think towards the end of 2025, we heard about a potential project across the street on Magnolia Avenue being added to the CIP that I think was being spearheaded by the Larkspur Community Foundation. Is that on the horizon, or do you have any insights onto where that is?
Yeah, so that's across the, yeah. We're actually in very preliminary stages and doing some evaluation there. The first step is we're hiring a geotechnical engineer to do a site evaluation. Because we haven't done any work, we don't really have a whole lot of history of what's feasible over there. And then you know, our partner in that is the Larkspur Community Foundation. So they're working with us to get that first kind of environmental assessment of the site to determine if it's feasible or not. So we're actually doing some of the site work tomorrow morning. And then once we go through that evaluation process and we see if that's a viable project or not, then the next step is it would get added onto what we call an unfunded project list.
Okay.
That's it's basically a list of projects that is appended to the CIP because we don't have a time frame for it, but we know there's either community interest or there's a board or commission that's expressed an interest in it. And it's been vetted to a point where we know it's feasible. There's just a funding question. So if that process moves to the point where it looks like it's feasible, then by early May, when we go to the council with the CIP, then that would appear on the unfunded project list. But we don't usually put them on that list until we've done our due diligence up front. Like if we go in there and we do our geotech and they you know, go down a foot and it's solid rock, or it's something that's going to make the cost estimates or the vision of what the group wants to do there not work out, then it wouldn't appear on that list. So we usually try to do a little bit of investigation first, but we are moving towards it getting into the CIP, but we're not close enough to actually call it a project yet.
Fantastic. Kind of in that same vein, has your department looked at expanding the parks? Are there other potential areas that could be turned into parks? You know, proximity to Larkspur Landing or other areas in Larkspur where if we wanted to create another smaller mini
Pocket
park,
Pocket park.
pocket park?
We haven't actively been looking at that. I mean, typically how that happens in most cities is you get a new development that comes in, and then there's an analysis of what parks are going to be used by the residents, and does that particular development need its own new park, or do they need to pay an in lieu fee towards improving the other parks? We don't really have a whole lot of new development here.
Yeah.
There are some projects that are, you know, in the pipeline that we know of out in the Larkspur Landing circle area. And so part of our evaluation when those projects come in as planning applications will be what park facilities are nearby, are they sufficient if we're adding, you know, 300 homes or whatever in an area. And then you work with the developer to determine, is it appropriate to have another mini park within their development, or should they pay an in lieu fee where we may be able to add features to, say, either, you know, if we're talking Larkspur Landing Circle, it's either neighborhood park or it's Remillard Park. Typically you can always spend that money to a Piper because it's a regional park. But you could also spend it at, like, for example, if a new development came online at Larkspur Landing Circle, you wouldn't be able to take that money, in lieu money, and go put it in Hamilton Park out on South Alicio. You'd have to spend it in a park nearby or in Piper because it's regional. But outside of new development, and the Arch Street step, group that came forward, haven't really, had a whole lot of requests for new park sites. We get requests for, park amenities at existing parks, as, people, have come forward and, made donations for new features at Dolliver and at Niven, but not a whole new park per se.
So kind of in that same vein with, Oak Hill development on the horizon and another development immediately adjacent to that. Would that be a case where, we would nominate them or make a suggestion to you guys to tee out the development of a park in proximity, maybe like Miwok or one of the other kind of wooded areas?
Yeah. Oak Hill, we won't really have a whole lot of say because it's in the county, so
Okay, got it.
it's not, we're not really gonna be a participant in
Okay,
and how that gets approved and moves forward, but certainly the Ross Valley parcel, when that develops, and then there's another group that's looking at building near the Exchange office building on Larkspur Landing Circle. And then I think there's also an apartment to condo conversion out there that's in the works. Each one of those projects will trigger planning applications, and part of that review is a impact on parks. And so I think when you're dealing with something that's that significant of a size, I'll talk with Nick about what their proposal is, and then if it merits coming here and as a sounding board for what they're proposing and whether it's in line with your expectations.
that would be fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Skinner. Are there any other questions on business item 4.2? All right, let's move along to business item 4.3. Proposal for Battle of the Bands in Piper Park on June 7th. The Larkspur Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. And I know we received this all via email and so forth, but I did share recyclable, of course. I have some hard copies if you would like to take a look at this as we chat, if that would be helpful.
I'll introduce you to. This is Marty with the Larkspur Chamber. And so if you remember, last year, Larkspur Chamber hosted the Battle of the Dad Bands at Piper Park. And that kind of triggered our coming up with a park special event policies, which we worked over the last year to put in and was just recently approved by the council. So what we're looking to do tonight is hear Marty's presentation on what they're looking to do at Piper and provide feedback and voice any concerns and have a conversation and hear public comment too.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Marty Murphy with the Larkspur Chamber. I lived in Larkspur since 1999. My kids growing up here, K through 12, live up in Madrone Canyon. My husband grew up in San Anselmo, so it's been very exciting over the last year and a half to be a part of the chamber. Is very vested in the community. My 91-year-old mother-in-law still lives in San Anselmo, so it's nice to be very vested in the community through this role. And this year with the second annual Battle of the Bands, which again, what the purpose of this is both, of course, a family-friendly community event. We are also looking to long-term the wine stroll and Battle of the Bands to become fundraisers to support the chamber, but also making sure that they are events that serve the community. We are grateful for the support from the city, and I've worked very hard to grow our membership over the last year and a half. But those two pieces together do not fully support the costs of holding events, from the stage rentals to tent, all the things, to my hourly paid part-time benefits. So it's a nominal cost, but cost all the same. So that's why we were looking to do this. As a former retail business owner in Corte Madera and Healdsburg, as well as someone who's been part of the community, I also always have a keen mind that the purpose of the chamber is to serve our local community and local businesses to the benefit of citizens and our merchants. So this year's Battle of the Bands, first of all, choosing the date, we wanted to have the date prior to folks departing for the summer. But I work every month with the Marin County Chamber of Commerce's, and I know all my colleagues and partners in other cities. I also partnered, looking with Bon Air, trying this to the next, okay, with dates, because last year there was conflict when the dates were originally created. We want to make sure this is a day we're supporting. For example, the car show is happening at Bon Air on the 6th. The Fairfax and Novato events, which were held at the same time last year, are happening the following weekend. So Sunday, June 7th was a time where, for our community, even money aside, we're driving a community event and activities not in conflict with our key partners, our key members of our community. So that's hence why we chose this date. And also because of the Music in the Park series, Friday through the Sunday, which, by the way, I have some wine to donate to the Music in the Park series, that, as we did last year. We wanted it to be very much a standalone event that was complementary to other activities. A quick event overview. Last year, we did have about 600 attendees. We're looking to, I've expanded greatly since I began in late 2024 in this role. Media partnerships, I was one of the first advertisers as a business with Marin Magazine. I've partnered with them closely. They're a gold partner who donated tens of thousands in advertising to us, and also Marin Dish, working with other local social media partners. So I anticipate also with gentler and more simplified pricing this year, hopefully to get 700 attendees. As you can see, we are looking for 5 hours again to have hopefully 5 to 6 bands. We're inviting back the band that was the winner of last year to be the headliner. And then I'm working with the gentleman who organized the stage and the setup last year to help us find good bands. We are saving money on paying the various bands. I've been looking again with the business eye, where can we keep our costs cut? My fees are less, it's part of my job, that making this a break even to in the plus fundraiser for us. So I'm looking at every corner where we can run a strong, solid family event safely with recycling and so forth, but also where we can cut costs from last year. Again, the key changes also we already have the wine stroll, and I know that people enjoy having some alcoholic beverage options at events like this. I didn't want to have a full beer garden. What we're doing instead, and I'm very excited with, thanks to Kevin Blum of Marin Dish, Silver Peso, the owner Max Perry, and then Corner Bar and Tam Tavern are going to be the folks providing the alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages predominantly. Again, that's a local business. We're going to be helping them with their ribbon cutting in April. I want to drive the business to Larkspur, Kentfield, Greenberry businesses, and certainly Marin businesses and people that we know and interact with all the time. Also, we had a VIP section last year. The ticket pricing was high. I felt like that wasn't as approachable and family friendly to others. It was a great idea, but this year also just one ticket price. And then also it did cost additional funding and monies to set up that VIP section. I don't think it's necessary. So that was just a thing that we're taking out. It was a request from both attendees and post-event surveys, as well as even the members, the merchants and people who participated in the event, to expand the kids zone. I spoke yesterday with Andrews Camps, who provided this service last year for very nominal cost. They're very excited to come again, and we're going to create larger family-friendly areas just for cornhole, just things where folks can get together while they're listening to the music and be with their families. And then lastly on that also is Katie at Andrews Camps reminded me that it will be a safe area with crafts and events where younger children within eyesight of their families can play while maybe parents are taking a moment to dance or enjoy the music. So very family-friendly focus, food and beverage, but not a whole, it's not all about the beer. It's about a family music event. Again, if we get to the next things, we've got initial folks, food and beverage. These are folks who are confirmed. I was just speaking with Reed prior to the start of this meeting that I would welcome. I really want to look at our Bon Air or like Woodlands, our local Left Bank did lobster rolls last year. Loved it. Again, Silver Peso's involved. I'm very glad Squid Pizza is able to join us. He gave away, Squid Pizza donated over 100 pizzas at the wine stroll. I'm excited that he can come and recoup some of his generosity, and all the food will be for sale. We do not take a portion of that. We want our merchants to make money. They will pay a nominal fee for a table and just to cover the cost of the table rentals. We own tents already, which, by the way, the Parks and Rec Commission, if you would ever like to borrow those are paid for by public dollars or in our storage unit. I've shared them with Spark. I'd like to share them with folks. So we're charging nominal fees just to set up the tabling. We had a large water container last year where people can come fill up their water bottles. If folks care to bring a picnic and their own water bottle, they don't have to spend any money on food. They can just come and have 5 hours of great music. The stage and infrastructure is the same. And while, of course, nothing has been finalized pending your review and hopeful approval, I did want to pull the stakeholders together because one, timing, and two, to make sure that we were offering you a solid event venue and planning. They're the same folks we worked with last year. Again, the Kids Zone activities, local makers, per downtown merchants, all of whom I've personally known for decades because I've worked with all of them when I had a business. We will welcome all our members and non-members if they'd like to have a table to sell their local products and so forth. And so there's that. And then if we quickly go to the layout, I did take a quick walk just this afternoon. The proposed area would be the same as last year. It was too big for what it was. We reserved, we just made it too large. It didn't feel as intimate. It was also unnecessary to block off that much of the park. So today I just took a look, and as a point of reference, I don't have a photo to add in there, but all the rear area would stay the same. But today when I was walking by, we had the fenced off area down to where there are two older picnic tables. It would be above that. And I saw there were some cones and markings sort of further up. If you would look at where the square is, a rectangle, they were further up and now fenced off. I'm sure remediating the grass. It would be further back. So the shape is the same. And I denoted the differences. We're not going to have the more expensive basin and loo toilets. Again, another line item of cost cutting. Smaller tents, the vendors, the food and drink. And then also I work consistently with Ellie at Zero Waste Marin every month, both in our newsletter, because it's very important to me personally and to the chamber. I always include news from Zero Waste Marin in our newsletter and also support it in our social media. So we will have the appropriate both clear stream bags, the appropriate with Mill Valley refuse, the 3 different, debris boxes. And then I love the idea, thanks to Nick, of again inviting them to come as an education table. That's something even if the Larkspur Park and Rec Commission, last year we had the local response group come. I would like our local community members, if they would care to have an educational table there, because it's going to be not like, it's going to be very fun and family friendly with folks while having time to come by, stop and chat about things like that. So that is that situation. And then with safety, security, and sustainability, obviously very important to us. I've already have, it's just in the wings, tentative agreement again with Shaw Management, who provided security there last year. These are all former Cal football players, and it was an alum, a gentleman who was at Redwood. They provide excellent security. It would be 8 guards on duty, roving the event, as well as at the points of entry. We also have the dedicated EMT. Again, we'll use the same team that we had before. Medical assistance on site is very important. Restrooms, just porta potties, but we will ensure as we get the final count that there is a sufficient number per the number of attendees, as well as ADA compliant, and that folks will use those provided porta potties from us. And then again, also very important to me personally and in general, the Zero Waste Marin partnership, ensuring that we are fully compliant with bins and boxes. We set those up last time in several areas, so we'll set those up in the food station areas. And also I have added, I just prepared the draft pending contracts, even with like food, the beverage with Peso, Corner Bar, no single-use plastics. That's not going to be allowed, so everyone needs to provide recyclable spoons, forks, glasses, and so forth, and will be expected to help clear out their waste appropriately in the appropriate debris boxes. And then quickly, a look back at the event before, again, I really wanted to focus on the photos that, because we're gonna have food and vendor, it's again, not gonna be, and they were lovely, the folks from the various beer vendors, but that's not the focus. That we will have the food and beverage vendors. Again, we'd like to, as you see over in this area, expand the parachutes were a big hit. Just have more area for families to play and hang out, and where kids can safely be with Andrews Camp's, certified staff. That's my focus. So it's 5 hours of music, family friendly. You can buy food and other things or nothing. And for $45, you're gonna hear 6 bands, a headliner band, under 21 from 5 to 20, $20, kids 5 and under free. And just one price, clean, and that's a basic focus. Is it's a fundraiser, but I've tried to cut the operating costs of it down as much as possible, and hopefully with strong partnerships, we'll get to that 700 number. Certainly break even if I keep these line items tight. And we want to be, in the closing, this to become a profitable event to help fund. I don't mind if my role is always part-time and forever, but it does have a small cost, and it costs money, as you know, to rent the stages, or anything that we do, as you know, costs money to rent the bins and so forth. So we're just trying to do this as one of 2 annual fundraisers. And the last thing I would say to that is, I personally, as a small business owner, want to do, which responds to, and I've known Maria for decades at Copley Co. I want to do more activations downtown and North Magnolia. Bernadette Sullivan is one of our new board members. She and Chet are the co-owners of, new co-owners of Corbett's. Do things in their parking lot, or come and support at no cost, such that Reed and his team care to at Bon Air, or at, we're helping Grateful Dog do some outreach. They were flooded over in the industrial area. Do events and activities that are no cost to the community, save my organization time or our marketing time, and that these are the type of fundraising events can let us do more and increasing activations, like our holiday on Magnolia. I'm organizing a Mother's Day on Magnolia event that will be similar to holiday, no blocking of streets, no large cost, but more and consistent activations in the community. But we have to have some monies to do those things. And that's what I have. I very much appreciate your time listening to me, and I welcome questions.
Thanks, Marty. It sounds like you put a lot of thought into this event. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Harrison.
This looks very thorough, very well organized. One question.
Sure.
Last year, I understood there were some parking concerns. And is there any thought or direction as to, if you're going to get 700 people, there's not going to be enough parking in Piper?
No, that's a really good point, and it's one that I realized I should cross-check with Redwood High School Foundation. I work closely with Rebecca Casperson and Spark, for that matter, to cross-check, because my kids both went there, what the parking, what availability and permitting. That's important to provide that additional directions. We will use Eventbrite again, and we only did this late in the game last year, that I would have added earlier to that parking. And then of course the Lucky parking lot. And one of the reasons I was actually very glad to push this to Sunday is Saturdays are important shopping days for people. Not that Sunday is not, but I felt like it would impede less on, our merchants. And also I think there'll be more availability in the Lucky parking lot. But I'm glad you mentioned, and make a note that we do need to provide that additional guidance and direction to attendees. So thank you for that.
Another question I would have is about sound.
Yes.
And will there be any sound limitations or decibel readings?
That again, and Fred, I did the marketing. I didn't do as much of the initial organizing, but we're having the same gentleman, Fred. I thought that his business is Fred X. Fred, I'm one of those people who thinks these kind of things are funny. I'm seriously glad that you asked, because someone said, "Oh, I was glad across the cove, across the way I could hear it. We don't want to have him hear it too much." So let me ask him about his decibel ratings, because he will provide all the professional sound. I'm not sure if there are additional, it'll again be 12 to 5, but if I should review any city requirements and regulations, I'm glad you brought that up.
Last year, I think one of the big things that I reminded your group last year is that facing speakers away from the water
Okay.
makes a huge difference, because
Yes.
water carries sound, so.
Okay.
So that's the number one thing that I tell people, but yeah, a good sound technician will be able to provide.
But that guidance, and this is the guidance, I have no ego in this to do a good job for our community. So this is exactly the kind of guidance with your experience that I welcome. So that's a good one. And again, and as ideas pop up, you can always, after having owned a business 7 days a week, Reed knows you're never really off. You check. So it's my pleasure to receive emails. So we've got sound and then also parking. But I will check with him and also make sure that we're complying with local ordinances on noise.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing about this ahead of time. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Well, I like communication more is more.
Commissioner Sunshine.
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
First of all, one to Nick, like, what is the action? Is this an information item for us or
This is mostly informational. I would
Okay.
need feedback from you.
feedback? Okay.
Yeah, as much feedback as you're able to provide, general support of it, but I'm not looking for a vote or anything today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I appreciate you coming
Thank you.
here. I wasn't here last year, but I also realized, like, you know, year over year, you learn a lot
A
in
lot.
terms of how you put on a big event. And I was just kind of interested about, you know, kind of what you learned on the marketing side, how you are clearly, you made some changes on
Yes.
what the actual logistics of the event will be. But just curious, like from last year to this year, are you marketing it differently? What was successful? How are you gonna build it, you know, bring your 600 people back and then add another 100 plus people?
Yes, that's a good question. In fact, because my job is a part-time one and we don't have any other employees, and I do put a lot of sweat equity into it. We actually did a great survey at the beginning of the year with businesses that I added, put on social and our newsletters and so forth. And the good news is that local merchants of all sizes and all different parts, because of course Canfield, Green Bay, Larkspur, said was the social media and marketing outreach. And that is something within my hours and within the budget to make sure I don't overrun in cost, is very successful. So to that point, one, by using Eventbrite, again, it's a good question. And I hadn't really dug into that until this role extensively, that all of the prior last year's attendees from the wine stroll, from battle and so forth, they will receive, and there's functionality within that you outreach to them. Also, when I started this role, we had to recreate, because of past executive director, we had to completely recreate our Instagram. We're about to get to 2,500 folks, and I have worked very hard again on our social media. I post on Instagram, Nextdoor, Facebook, and I post on LinkedIn, including my own personal, which I have thousands. The cross marketing has been fantastic, again with Marin Dish, especially as he's bringing in those three folks. Marin Magazine, I just had a meeting with them and their new account manager. And then Marin Buzz has been a new partner who joined the chamber. Also, we did, I think, the peso. It was like 42,000 views. Yes, it was so exciting.
All of my kids have called me about that.
Well, there's
And I
Marin.
saw it through Marin Buzz.
There's Marin lately. Now, considering one time he did a spoof about Larkspur, he was like, made that like Joe Bob, the executive director of the chamber, which was hilarious. I was like, really? But yeah, we're connected on social now. But seriously, Marin Buzz, and then Maid and Marin, I'm really hoping they'll have time to do a table. I've gotten to know them pretty well. They may be too busy with some of their other things going on, but they are going to cross market. So I agree with you. We've got to get the word out, and especially if we're going to be fiscally tight and then hope to break even / make a profit. So the marketing, although I've got to get going. So hopefully in the sense of I've got to get this launched like ASAP, even though people only buy tickets usually the last 3 to 4 weeks, we need to have a placeholder. I'm eager to press the save the date tomorrow if I can, as soon as possible. And I have to confirm these folks. So that's my marketing plan. And then we work with Ram Printing at Bon Air for all our marketing. He's been a valued, not only member, but a printing partner. So all of these people are going to help marketing. And lastly, it is the expectation, for example, that the Velvet Fog, as getting to be the headline band, to extensively market, as are all of Andrew's camps, all of our attendees, who I hope will come and make money, but also are beholden to their own personal channels to invite. So that's the plan for now, but we had almost nothing by way of marketing, because it had all be rebuilt in 2024, so it's manifold, like order of magnitude larger right now.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Yeah.
So, a couple things. So, great, thank you for putting this all together,
Thank you.
and all the work we put into the event permits was worth it. So a few things that I pointed out that I wrote down were the Sham management. I actually was on site. I wrote many notes about this event, being a production person myself, professional event planner for 20+ years. I saw security that day. I was in the parking lot picking someone up who was leaving the event. I saw people leaving the event with alcohol, leaving the event with
Okay.
drinks, going out publicly, which I never allow anyone to
No,
do the
not
site
okay.
with, and they walked right past security doing that. So
Okay,
that was a real concern.
Yes.
That I would just make a note of with Shaw Management. I have concerns about an event of this size. I'm not sure Larkspur has the infrastructure to support an event like this in that facility, with that parking facility. I have concerns that, you know, I've noticed all the signs that are up now along Rose Lane and Orchid that say no parking, private property, because they have real concerns with the library being up. I'm sure they don't want anybody parking on those streets. So to Commissioner Harrison's point about what's the parking plan? There needs to be a real parking plan for this permit before it would move forward, in my opinion, because we're gonna face some real issues, I think, because those signs are new in Rose Lane about no parking here, private property, no parking. Those are all up along the Rose Lane development, and I'm not sure, but I would venture to say it's because of the library, and they don't want people parking on their streets, they don't want to park in the library parking lot. So the new library being down there, it wasn't there last year. So I think that's gonna be a real concern that we would have to visit, and how that's gonna affect that. And there should be no parking in the library parking lot during this event, so who's gonna govern that? I have a little bit of a concern for our Music in the Park series that Nick has spent 5 years, 6 years, 5 years-ish, building, and we have spent, and Recreation Department has spent years building that event up. We get 400 or 500 people there a night, sometimes on a good night with good heat and good band, no wind, except for the one night in the series that we have wind. And it's growing, and we have plans to grow it even more. And this falls right smack in the middle of the series. And we spend every week explaining that we break, because we stopped having the concert on the Friday because of this event last year on the Saturday. So it throws off the continuity of the series. And we spend a lot of time explaining why we don't have our Friday night concert in the middle of our concert series because of this event falling on that weekend. I'm glad it's moved, because last year it was up against Nevada Art and Wine. And I think that Art and Wine series is the same concert weekend that Mill Valley has its. They're both on the same weekend, Nevada Art and Wine and Mill Valley's, if I'm correct, on opposite ends of the county.
and
I mean, Nevada
Fairfax.
Art and Wine gets 90,000 people. As an event person, this format isn't a great fundraising format. I'll just add that, because most, like Nevada Art and Wine, you don't pay to go. And the vendors make the money, and that's how the money is made. And the people who host the event make the money selling food and alcohol. So you don't pay to go listen to the music. That's not the fundraising venue. And I think that might be the problem. That's a personal opinion, not necessarily my purview here. Selling tickets to listen to music where people can go listen to Nevada Art and Wine. They have two stages on either end of Grant, and the music's free all weekend. So it's a hard format for a moneymaker. And then we had a late comment here from Nuri from Coleco, as a public comment that was submitted online about not understanding how this helps Magnolia merchants, because it's not a business event. And I actually was in on Magnolia, what's today, Thursday, Wednesday, so maybe Tuesday. And I popped into 3 different stores and asked them about this event, and they were not complimentary of what it did for their business during the event. And they didn't understand why it was happening again, because it's not, doesn't bring business to them. So those are my concerns. And the biggest one for me is, like I said, the physicality of this community may not be the right infrastructure for an event of this size and this magnitude. Those are my comments and call outs. Even though it may or may not meet the criteria for this, the way that this flushes out. And I would be really concerned about Rose Lane parking. That's a huge issue for me. Because I have that library is gonna, the parking,
No.
I don't see a parking plan anywhere in this situation.
First of all, again, I always welcome, you need to have all the feedback and you need to look at reality to do things. So I never, more is more. And you definitely have an enormous amount of wealth of experience. A quick question for you regarding a parking plan, or how did it, I don't like to use the word feel with factual and analysis of things, but how did it feel, the alcohol walking out notwithstanding, how did it feel to you with your professional eye with the parking last year?
Oh, it was Saturday, Rushwell, right?
Right,
So, I mean, I think by.
Which I
10
think
o'clock,
is
the parking
worse.
lot's full.
yes, which is worse, I
And I
think,
think
than
you had it
Sunday.
blocked up a little bit for vendors to drop off, which is fine, obviously, for
Yes.
load in and load out. I was also there early in the morning just to check load in, and I met mayor at the time, Mayor Way at the time.
Yes.
For something else, and I watched cars drive on the pathway. There was nobody checking in drivers and trucks. They were driving right on the pathway, driving on the lawn. It's nice to see that there was no physical damage to the lawn that you noticed that was noticeable that needed repair. But like I said, at 17 years of the Sausalito Art Festival,
Yes,
loading this is obviously much smaller scale. I get
Yes.
that. So I appreciate the learning and exercise. But to see cars driving with nobody monitoring them on the path, we're all very protective of our parks. It was concerning to me, but the parking lot was full, but we know that.
right.
Sunday's a little less.
And the
I don't know
Lucky
if the-
parking lot,
I don't
I
know what the
mean,
parking's like on Sunday versus Saturday.
yeah,
Pretty much full every
Yeah,
day.
I mean,
Yeah.
pickleball is taken over and tennis, and I would imagine the parking lot's full both days, so. I think Redwood's a good option, but I mean, Redwood's full, although they've got that new lot they.
the new lot,
opened.
and also at the Lucky, because that's even more adjacent. I'm just trying to think also time-wise because I want to provide what is needed also time-wise as we're coming to April. And, like Silver Pace was like, are we doing this? Because otherwise maybe I want to go do something else. So we need to attend to these things, but how comfortable are folks right now? And if I pull a parking plan together, because I do think and observe that we've got Lucky parking lot, we've got Redwood, we cross-check with Redwood Foundation. That's a lot of folks. And again, we hope 600 plus will come. I know a number of people parked and walked. And then Nuria, who I've known for decades, I talked to them all the time, who were delighted with so many things that I've done. Again, we're trying to find ways to fundraise. And I was working on a Mother's Day on Magnolia event for them. And last time, Mayor Andre last year said to me when I was having a meeting, they get the huge wine stroll. And by the way, they don't want to close down the street ever, which is a universal. I've heard from my Novato colleagues, my San Rafael colleagues, no one wants to close the street ever. I would love to close the street and do something downtown. They don't want it. In fact, the way I've been spoken to a few times by people when I first started this job was very interesting about that. So I try to pivot away from that and have this event. And I also welcome all of them to come and meet 600 or 700 new people who could lay eyes on their business. When I owned a store in Healdsburg and we had events anywhere near Healdsburg, yes, because Old Town Port Madera will give its eye teeth to have half of what we're trying to do, because we do nothing for them. And I know because I help several people with their social media there. So I guess the question is, I am so appreciative, especially the points you pointed out, like that cannot be, we've got to have, like, security needs a talking to, like, that's so important. But do you feel, and it's critical, comfortable if we know that we've got Lucky parking lot, maybe we have some additional volunteers. I have more board members now, again, yay, we're very invested in our community, including Brad, who's joined us, and people on the ground. We can station people regarding parking, and I think that's an important call out, something about which I was not apprised last year. But in terms of doing this, if parking is the major concern, and I agree to your point, just as an entrepreneur and also now someone who's doing events. I used to do them for the Commerce Department overseas, domestically, with our embassies. Internationally, it's not as much experience locally as you have. The point being is we feel like the parking is attended to, be sure for noise and marketing. Does that sit comfortably if there's enough parking there? Only because of time. And by the way, I think, these things have just been important. I'm not an all-nighter. Had I kind of known some of the important steps, and I'm glad you're doing the new layer of looking at this. I would have been here in December just to be, or right, November. This is not normally how I roll, to be late in the game. So we've got all the stakeholders, we've got the template. Does this feel comfortable enough to you? Because we kind of need to be able to get started with this, I guess, or not. Hopefully, but just because we're coming into April, but I also want to be respectful that we're hearing and attending to the concerns. Does that make sense?
Yep. Are there any other questions from the other commissioners? Great. Marty, I
Thank
think, I applaud you for the amount of effort that you put into this. It seems like you've really learned from some of the things, the first iteration. It's a lot harder to lay bricks than it is to throw ones. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
My kind of questions come maybe on the tail of some of the things the other folks have shown. I think maybe showing a parking plan would be good. And then I'd encourage you to think, is there a way to integrate with maybe some of the existing music happenings or collaborate with Parks and Rec? I think we have, is it 6 weeks of music on Fridays, Nick?
Five, yeah.
I think it'd be really great if we got to work together on that, show kind of a one Larkspur
I would
front.
I would very much like that. Last year on the social media, I did advertise every single week and also in our newsletters, but I would love to know more or even have this folded in, co-branded and support. And again, I worked so hard to get more social media to add value to my partners because great, you have 5 followers, who cares? But now we have almost 100 members. People read the newsletter, and I share the newsletter on LinkedIn. I've been sharing last year the whole time that I want to be at the Easter egg hunt, all the things, the Christmas, the holiday lights. I've been sharing all that, but I welcome to know how we could do that more. And I would love to put this under the umbrella of the importance of supporting the music in the park all summer. And I've known most of the women, Larkspur Carter Madeira Foundation, Larkspur Foundation, our kids all went to school together, I know everybody, I would like to do that a lot more. So if there's ways that we could co-brand this, I certainly also, regardless, will be and did promote all of the concerts every single week last year. But now I have more people to share it with, so hopefully it's more impactful.
And,
So we can co-brand it however you like.
Great.
Again, no ego in this game, whatever you guys want.
No, thank you for being a community player, Marty.
Yeah,
We're,
thank you very
lucky
much.
to have you.
Well,
Yeah.
it should be. I always say play nicely in the sandbox of life.
Director Stone, do you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, or queries for Chamber of Commerce? How we might
We've
work
had a few
together?
conversations already, and we'll probably continue to have conversations over the next couple weeks, months. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Fantastic. Well, can we move on to the next item?
Yes, yes, we'll talk first thing.
Yeah, I just want to know. Okay, thank you very
All right.
much.
Thanks, Marty.
I really appreciate all your time and thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank
All
you.
right. Takes us to item number 5, Director's Oral Report.
Right, quick report for you. It's that time of the year. We have our flashlight egg hunt coming up in a couple weeks
How
on
many
Friday, April 3rd, be at Piper Park. It's at 8:30 p.m. Don't like to admit when things don't go right for me, but last year the line broke 5 minutes early.
When are you there?
8:25.
When are you there?
Oh my
Sorry.
God.
I was there.
I see Nick just loses his mind there. It's so funny. He's like, oh, I keep
Yeah,
these kids
I
on the
went-
line.
I went hoarse that night, yelling at everyone, trying to keep them back. luckily we had eggs in reserve, so the stragglers got eggs, so. This year we're gonna work hard. I've got my, Rec 1 is the new, rec, golf cart, John Deere Gator that we have. It's all electric, so we'll have that out there. Hopefully keeping kids back. Yeah,
Electric fencing, yeah.
get that probably.
Right, doing just electric fence, just zap them if they go.
And then, so that's a collaboration with Corte Madera Parks and Rec as well. So, and then Saturday morning, we go out to Town Park. At 10 a.m., we do kind of the younger kid spring egg hunt, and all the families come out with really, really young kids, and it's a great time. It's always very fun, and knock on wood, we'll get good weather. And then the big thing that's coming up, I hope you guys can all make it on the 28th. Next Saturday is the library ribbon cutting.
I don't know, take the day off, don't worry.
Sorry to steal your thunder, but I have to say it. So we're gonna have a few different food vendors out there offering free food for the community. We'll have some youth activities, a lot of Hall Middle School volunteers helping us out, and booths with a bunch of different community
Julian built the building.
community groups. And yeah, round of applause for Julian. What you didn't see was over the weekend, he was out there with his hammer.
Yes, he's been out doing just like when he's at the ice cream lights down.
And that is it.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, Director Stone. This takes us to item number 6, Commissioners' Reports. Are there any commissioners that would like to share a report? The news have it. All right, that takes us to item number 7, most important meeting, part of the night. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Fantastic. Is there a
A
second?
second.
All those in favor?
Gavel, gavel, I like the gavel.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
So-
Thanks, Julian, that building, make sure